And you know what the thing is, guys, it's been a phenomenal, phenomenal journey. Watching just the studios grow has been an inspiring thing. Seeing how they've evolved the brand, catered to more people. You guys cater to Balis now. I see a lot of Balis here.
Hopefully, bro. They're the ones with the money. They need to come. More old people, the better. Nice. Sweet. Just talk?
Yo,
Cool. Yeah. Sweet.
word. Alright guys, so really excited to be sharing today's podcast with you guys, right? And I think today will be a mashup of a couple of ideas that I've kind of learned to grapple with over the past year, learned to kind of break down, right? And one of the most, I think, important things that I learned throughout 2023, right, was overcoming fear, right? There are a lot of young people that are looking to go into business. There are a lot of young people that are looking to take that career jump. There are a lot of young people looking to just do something out of the norm and out of the ordinary, right? But are oftentimes crippled by fear. So one of the things that I did, right, to help me kind of mitigate my feelings was to understand fear, right? And fear is broken down into different categories. The first one being fear of poverty, second one being fear of criticism, fear of loss of love, fear of sickness, fear of old age, and then the sixth one being fear of death, right? So we're going to break down fear of poverty. So have you noticed that when someone has money, their energy is completely different, right? Their energy is completely different. And the fear of poverty comes from, how society treats someone that does not have money, right? And I think the thing that slows people down the most in terms of taking that leap of faith, taking that opportunity seriously, is the fact that they fear that people will treat them differently if they fail or lose money, right? Because somehow it impacts your spirit. When you earn money, right? There's an aura about you. You feel a certain way, right? So they say if you take a poor man, right? Let's say you see a homeless guy on the street, you give that guy 10,000 rand, right? He just gets elated at the fact that he has 10,000 rand, but it doesn't change anything about him. It doesn't change the aura. It doesn't change how he feels. But if a man were to earn 10,000, right, something about him is different. He walks with his head held high, right? Because there is value in input. What you put in is what you get out. You respect it more and you respect yourself, right? So overcoming the fear of poverty is overcoming the fact that not wondering what people will say about you if you then lose money. The fact that you have input, eventually there will be a considerable output, right? The next one is fear of criticism. 9 times out of 10, we grew up in households where our parents were saying specific things to us growing up, right? The birth of criticism and the fear of criticism usually comes from our background and our place of birth, right? Your parents, your family, your friends, the formative school that you went to. You were always told to live within certain confines, conforming to the norm, right? Don't be, who do you think you are? Do you think you're special, right? And that's where the fear of criticism comes in, because you feel like this idea or this passion or this idea that you have is too far out of the normal. What will people think innately? What will people think if I proudly represent my business? What will people think if I proudly represent my product? People will judge me. Will they buy? Won't they buy? Right? How will society accept me? That's where fear of criticism cripples a lot of people. The fear of standing out, right? Then there's the fear of loss of love. The fear of loss of love stems deeply in terms of how we react and how we control our feelings and emotions as well as our actions, right? So the fear of loss of love can lead you to spending over your budget, right? Crossing lines that you're not meant to cross in the name of love, right? Because you love your family so much, you could work way more than you spend time with them, and that could ultimately destroy the relationship. So it's always looking to find that balance, right? Fear of loss of love. If I become too successful, will I still fit in? Will my friends still accept me? How will my friends feel? How will my family feel? How will my partner feel? right? That's the fear of loss of love. The fear of sickness. Have you noticed, right, that most sicknesses start in here first, right? When your energy is down, you're at a plane where just things are just going wrong and you get caught by sickness. Have you noticed the doctor? Doctors see multiple sick patients in a day and still don't get sick whatsoever because in their head, their belief system is, I do not get sick, right? The moment your mind becomes susceptible to sickness, that is when it catches you, right? The fear of old age. A lot of the times, people start to panic once they start hitting the age of 25, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and it can go on, right? People start to panic because they feel like they don't have the time that they had back then, as well as approaching old age. Some of your freedoms, some of the things that you used to enjoy are now being controlled, right? Because 9 times out of 10 you're growing old and frail, so you can't be left to your own devices anymore. You have to have a caregiver. People have to take care of you. So that fear of losing that freedom, the fear of losing opportunity due to time, I think is what gets people a lot when it comes to the fear of old age, right? Then the fear of death, right? We all know it's coming at some point or the other. And I think the more comfortable we become with actual death, right, is the moment we start living freely. We don't live with the, but what if tomorrow? But what if I do this, what if, right? So those are the different fears that I think people really, really struggle with. And I think, you know, with you looking at your journey going into 2024, going forward, if you can break down which fears you feel the most, right? Isolate it, understand it, and try to overcome it. So every time you're faced with it, you can then pull it up and be like, this is fear of. When an opportunity comes and you're afraid to put your money up, this is fear of poverty. But what's the return on investment? Did I do my investigation? Do I understand what I'm getting myself into? Am I prepared for the risk, right? So when you isolate the fear, bring it back, you go from a point of, you know, being paralyzed by fear to understanding it, then working out a plan of implementation, right? Yeah, that's understanding that part. And the next idea that I think I only got to understand really, I think in the past month of March, right, in my birthday month, was my family was all together and we went out, right? We went out and so it was booked at this beautiful place, right? Beautiful place, they have a lagoon, you can pay for day visits and whatnot. And at the time, it was, so it was about 100 Rand per head, right? So there were 7 of my little cousins. So as we were going through this process, right, it was such a mission firstly to get them in, right? Because the rules of the estate and whatnot were a bit stringent. Secondly, I had booked a place there, so we had lunch, dinner, whatnot. The next day, the kids went into the lagoon and I had a training, right? And I found it very interesting because I started in the morning, got them into the lagoon, everything was good and well, and then I left, right? So I told them, hey, when you guys are ready to go home, you'll just Uber. And the thing was, I was surprised by how quickly they were done, right? So the whole day before, they were hyped up about going to the lagoon, right? Bear in mind, it's 100 Rand per person, so that's 700 Rand, right? 700 Rand. And they were literally done within 10 minutes, right? They were literally done within 10 minutes, and they were like, no, we want breakfast. I was like, nah, you're not getting breakfast, right? Do you know what a hassle it was to get access for you guys to this thing, right? That you guys were so excited for, hyped up. And I asked, what made you just take 10 minutes? And we're like, oh, we got bored and left, right? Now, this is where my argument came in with my aunt. we started speaking about perceived value, right? She was like, so my mom said, that 100 rand that you spent going into the lagoon, you could have spent it for your breakfast, but you're not going to get breakfast now, right? And my aunt said, no, you can't quantify that 100 rand of entering the lagoon as 100 rand equated to breakfast. And I said, you actually can, right? It comes to perceived value, right? And your level of enjoyment. The same 100 rand, right? But the perceived value of it is, how much more can I enjoy this 100 rand? I think as much as they spend 10 minutes in the lagoon, 100 rand meant nothing to them. But actually taking that 100 rand and having breakfast, right? They could have spent 30 minutes to an hour. They would have enjoyed that 100 rand way more having the breakfast than the 10 minutes that they spent in the lagoon. Which brings me to like another example, right? So I had these headsets. These headsets, beautiful brand, 7,000 rand, right? So my little cousin, well, she's my niece. I put it on the table. My niece takes it, starts slamming it. Bam, 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 right? And I'm like, I grab it, I'm like, yay, 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 yay. And she starts crying, right? Because I know the value of the headsets. I'm taking it and treating it with so much caution. For her, she's like 3 years old, right? She's never worked for money. She's never had to earn money. She's never had to pay for anything. So she doesn't understand the value of the headsets. To her, it's just a thing. To her, in her head, probably she's thinking it's a toy, right? And the way she treated it was without the understanding of, this is headsets and it costs 7,000 rand, right? Because she didn't have to pay for it. So a lot of the times I look at how people treat stuff, right? How you treat something is your perceived value of the thing, right? A lot of people come into an opportunity and their perceived value of the opportunity determines how far they take the opportunity, right? With the business that I'm in, when I came in at first, my perceived value of it was, I just want to make, 500 bucks for groceries. And the more I went on, then I started seeing the possibilities. Then they told me about, qualifying for gala dinners. This opportunity can get you qualified for gala dinners. This opportunity can get you on fully paid for vacations, right? So the more I went, I started understanding the value of the opportunity, right? But my initial perceived value of the opportunity was completely different. So that's why I think a lot of the times, we want people to see a bigger picture. We want people to see this big dream. But it's all based on perspective, right? Everything is based on perspective. There's general perspectives and general truths which are generally true to everyone, right? But everything I'm telling you now is really true to me and my perspective and could be different to you. You could have a different point of view, right? So everything is all perspective based and perceived value. How you perceive something will determine how serious or how lightly you take something, right? How you perceive something will determine how much you enjoy or despise something, right? So it's like with myself, the whole thing of the precipice of drinking alcohol, right? I don't have a huge problem drinking alcohol because I don't view alcohol as something that hectic, right? I prefer my fitness, my energy, my vitality, my strength, my hormonal levels being balanced, my testosterone being up, right? I prefer those over drinking alcohol and the effects that will come with alcohol. I may have the occasional drink here and there, but it's not something that I constantly have to do because my perceived value on my well-being, my physique, my health, how I show up to places. I've shown up to places hungover, I've shown up to places well-rested, energized, just hit the gym, so my blood is flowing, the confidence is up, and you show up as two totally different people. You perform totally differently, right? And that all comes down to perceived value. When you have a big vision, how are you showing up? How do you perceive, the people around you, the crowd that you're in, the people you surround yourself with? How do you perceive those people, right? Yeah, perceived value, baby. Let's see. Let's have a look at some some of the other topics that I had, right? So what I do is I usually, if I have like an enlightening moment, I'll write it down, and I was like, I need to expand on this topic a lot more, right? So the one thing I noticed the most, I think in December, right? I called it society's problem now, which is a bit intense, but I would regard it as society's problem now, right? Which is lack of learning for understanding and lack of preparation, right? So I remember being back in school. So you could all know what? Study, cram, pass, forget, right? That was the formula. You study, cram, pass, forget, right? We weren't actually studying for understanding. You know, a lot of us made it through school. You study for that test, you probably study the day before, 2 days before, cramming all that information, cramming the right answers, and then going in, writing, passing, but then not really remembering those principles that you applied in the next exam, right? And I know I was guilty of that throughout most of my schooling career until I got to varsity. Varsity, my grades plummeted, right? And I know a lot of people's grades plummet because we study the same way. We study, cram, pass, forget. And it's like when you get to varsity, each test just gets harder and harder. Each exam just gets harder and harder, right? Because the lack of studying for understanding and lack of preparation is a thing that lives right now, right? So I remember in the team we had a shake party, and you know, they were young, very young guys. Sent them the material that they needed, sent them what they needed to practice for. There was enough time, about a week, to prepare and practice. When we got to the event, right, we're in business, we got to the event, and I'm watching the delivery of everything that I'd sent. And I was like, they didn't study to understand this, and they didn't prepare. So a lot of money was spent on the setup, but the delivery was the most important thing. And a lot of the times when we get into businesses and looking for opportunities, we think the setup, the bells and whistles, the glitz and glam need to be the things that are perfect. I can't start that. I can't start a wellness business if I don't have a gym, if I'm not in the gym. I can't. What other opportunity can you start without much? There's a lot of things you can do without having to have the bells and whistles, right? It's just the delivery of what you do. So it's like with me in the wellness business, right? I got started, I was working out outside twice a day, getting amazing transformation, using the products which the company provides and we distribute, right? Using those products, working out twice a day at home, showing the amazing energy that the products gave me, showing the transformation that I got, right? And then because of my personal decision, I've always been into like lifting weights, developing the physique. Then I transitioned into gym. And then today, there'll be people that say, no, I want to do what you do, but I don't have access to a gym. I want to be a part of the opportunity, but I don't have access to gym. It's like I never started in the gym. So we can take away the studying for understanding and preparation, right? And put it into any normal day life. So even with that event I was speaking about, right? The delivery was off, and that was the key thing to closing the deal, the delivery. I had a conversation with them, made them understand, right? Then they started preparing, they started practicing to understand. And now when you speak to them, I think it's 3-4 months later, it's a completely different level of understanding, completely different level of execution. The confidence is up because the preparation is there. So when we neglect, studying for understanding as well as preparation, 9 times out of 10 we show up with the least level of confidence. But if you study for understanding, they say you don't understand something unless you can explain it to someone that's 10 years old or younger. That is when that's when you truly understand something. When you've prepared is all that time you've spent trying to master this thing or master the message or the delivery, right? So when you show up as the most confident person because you know what you're about to deliver. It's not a thing of you're second guessing what you're going to deliver. You know exactly what you're going to deliver, right? So yeah, what are the topics? What are the topics, man? What are the topics? But so this podcasting journey has been very, very interesting, rather interesting, right? Having to shoot, having to prepare, the different people that we've been able to speak with, some of the interviews that we've done, some of the meetings that we've done to get people on a podcast, right? Getting to know people's stories. I think it's opened us up to the world really in terms of connecting with people. When you ask me why I wanted to get into podcasting, it was to connect with more people. I felt like, growing up I didn't really have a voice. I was always the quiet, shy guy that I got bullied. I won't lie, I got bullied. And it created a lot of rage within me. And as I got older, that rage came out in, I think the worst ways. The worst ways. I was always involved in fights in my first year in varsity. And I was extremely skinny. But no one knew the pain I was harboring from not having a voice all those years of growing up, being bullied, feeling like I wasn't seen, feeling like I wasn't accepted, because it was like I was either I wasn't back in Polokwane, I was too Lani for everyone else, and then when I moved to Joburg, it's like I'm not Lani enough, right? So there was always that tussle and trying to find middle grounds, and I'll forever appreciate everything that my family did for me to give me, a different experience in life, different experiences. I got to travel, been to different countries, I've been to some of the best schools, so I'm really grateful for all that. But growing up, I always felt like I didn't have a voice, and I always felt really, really, really smart. I felt like my opinion mattered, just that no one would listen to my opinion, right? And I speak for a lot of the guys that might feel they're sitting somewhere and they might feel like they have a voice, but no one will listen to them. They feel like they may have an opinion, but feel like people will invalidate it, right? So when I got into podcasting, I was by accident. I met my friend Toby in Cape Town, we connected, and we were just having conversation and it was flowing. And he's from Ireland, right? So I was able to connect with someone from Ireland who was in South Africa, who lives in Joburg, but we met in Cape Town. And just being able to connect like that, he was like, yo dude, I'm starting this podcast, would you like to be a guest? I'm like, yeah, definitely. And I remember I was rushing to his place. And if I'm going to be late, right, because I always check GPS, if something happens, I'll let you know well in advance. 30 minutes up front, I'm like, yo bro, I might be 5 minutes late, just expect this. Because one thing I want the next person receiving me to know is that I take the time very seriously. So maybe they're expecting me to arrive at 5:02 and we start shooting immediately at 3. But I was like, nah, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. So already they expect. So if I'm there early, great. So I rushed over, we shot the podcast, and the response from people was absolutely phenomenal. People resonated with the things that I had to share. And that was when I felt like I had a voice, right? I felt like what I said connected with thousands of people. The amount of reshares, the amount of shares, the amount of likes, the amount of comments, people sharing ideas. That's when I felt like I had a voice, and I was like, using my voice, because I was always told, I have a radio voice, I should go into radio. But I always felt like, nah, radio's not really my platform or my calling. But I didn't know how else I could use the God-given talent, right? And then the podcast thing came, and I was like, I actually really enjoy this. I really like sharing. through my personal experience and my journeys, because I have this huge vision of helping change 100,000 lives, right? It may not be through my opportunity, but it may be through my ideas. It may be through a topic covered. It may be through connecting and interviewing someone that has an answer for what you're looking for, right? So all these different things, I felt like podcasting tied into the bigger vision of touching 100,000 lives, where I can look back at the end of my life and look at the legacy. Not really legacy in its what we've built, but how many lives have we connected with? How many people have we connected with? Connected with people internationally while still being in South Africa. That's the power of your voice and your ideas. So for the person that feels like, they may not have a voice right now, no one's going to listen to them, trust me, take that first step. And if you don't get the desired outcome, you do it again. And you don't get the desired outcome, you do it again and again and again. And eventually you will connect with your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You will connect with the people that are looking to connect with you. I know I wake up every single day and I'm like, Lord, please connect me with the people that are looking to connect with me today. Open doors that I'm meant to walk through today, right? Go before me. So I already wake up with the anticipation of whoever I'm going to connect with today. That was my intention and I'm so excited. So everything is in moving the needle forward and connecting with more people. So yeah. Let's look at some of the other ideas, right? So I want to get into a more, we see this on social media, this red pill, blue pill, and it's like chasing women and stuff. And I think it's such an interesting feat, right? I remember I did a shoot with Toby and Lufuno, and they asked me about like what's my take on women and chasing women, and I was like, I've never struggled with getting beautiful women, and that was actually a lie. Now when I actually look back at it, I'm like, no, that's actually a lie, right? Yes, now I don't struggle, but it wasn't always like that, right? So back in school, I remember back in primary, so I was bullied, chipped my teeth and whatnot, so they called me Shark Boy. But I had this crush on this one girl, right? And she kind of had a crush on me. But her cousin was an L, right? So her cousin didn't really like me much, right? She felt like the cousin could do better. So the one day, I've mustered up the courage. I'm in the school court, center court, right? I'm in the school center court. And I went up to her, I was like, yo, will you go out on a date with me? And she looked at me, and she looked at her cousin. And most of my graders right there, she said no. And I was like, yo. It like, my heart went from here, and it went to sit right there at the bottom, right? And it completely, I think, it changed me. I think I became afraid of women. I became afraid of the rejection because I felt the rejection publicly. So I started becoming afraid of rejection, right? And even when I got to high school, I went to like Afrikaans school. So most of the women there were white women. And there was one that I had a crush on, but this one giant 16-year-old that ate all the protein since he was a baby. I think he started lifting weights at the age of 3. Found out that I had a crush on this girl and he wanted to beat me up. That time I was like 14, skinny, right? I had to call in the reinforcements. My boy Kieran that dealt with him, because Kieran was an MMA fighter. Kieran dealt with him, and only when I moved to Sandton, right? Because now I'm coming into my own, I'm developing my own style, I'm keeping to myself, I'm working on myself, I like sports, I do the things that I enjoy, right? I start attracting, I never went, start attracting, right? Started attracting some really beautiful women, right? So even when I got older, I never did this thing of seeking or chasing or going after I just kept working on myself, seeing, okay, as I'm doing this, as I have this plan for my life, as I have this vision of how I want to look, what I want to do, where I want to be, you become a magnet and you start attracting beautiful women, right? There are a couple of volatile ones here and there, but you start attracting. So my philosophy, especially when I talk to young men now, I said, don't chase, bro. When you chase, chasing is bad, right? But when you're working on yourself, you become a magnet, and that magnet attracts, right? Like attracts like. No? No, I'm lying. But magnets attract, right? The magnets that I'm into, they attract. So when you keep working on yourself, you then begin to attract. And if you're not attracting what you're looking for, it's just an indication that you need to keep getting better, right? Keep working on yourself. Work on the different spheres of your life, your mental, your physical, your financial, your spiritual, right? And your relationships. Keep working, keep working, keep working. And you end up being in spaces where you're around quality people. So in terms of chasing women, I think that's why like a lot of guys never really like me, right? Because like every year this guy just keeps getting handsomer and better, and we fighting big battles, and I'm always just like, dog, you ain't gotta fight a big battle, right? Just work on yourself, baby. So that's always my advice. I have a 16-year-old that I mentor, and I always tell him, bro, I'm not impressed by what you try to show me that you have or accumulated. I'm impressed by the person you become, and I can tell who you're becoming by listening to what you're saying, the things that you say, right? When you build your life on principle, your ear becomes sensitive to the things people say, and then your eyes become sensitive to the things people do, right? So I always tell them, like, I'm more impressed by who you become more than what you try to show me you have. Because what you accumulate can attract a woman, but when she spends enough time with you, will she respect you? Right? But if she's attracted by who you become and everything that you've amassed as an add-on and like the cherry on top, she will respect you and enjoy time with you. Right? So don't chase. Keep working on yourself. But also don't, if you're looking to get into a relationship, don't like work on yourself and don't just sit and think, yeah, it's just gonna come, right? Put yourself in spaces where you get to connect with people, you know, like-minded people. Put yourself in good environments that nurture healthy thinking, healthy interactions, healthy relationships. And then from there you'll see where it takes you. But don't chase. Don't chase. What's the other topic? What's the other topic? Alrighty. I was at church. Right? And they said, the more you continue to shine, the more shadows you cast. And that took me aback, right? Because it ties into two things: internal conflict and the desire to fit in. The more you continue to shine, the more shadows you cast, right? I think the thing that really creates that feeling or that atmosphere of the more shadows you continue to cast is the fact that social media is prevalent, right? And the thing that social media has done over the years is it's allowed people to take a look into your life. Back in the day, whatever you were doing, it was what you were doing, and only your family, friends, yeah, basically your loved ones knew what you were doing. They knew where your house is. They knew, you know, when you go on vacation, they knew. Just that group of people. But now with having social media and people having access to social media, now people have a glimpse into your life. You know, what did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? You were here this weekend. You did that. Do you smoke? Do you drink? Who are you dating? So the more you continue to shine on social media, the more shadows you cast on the people that may feel like they may not be shining, right? Which is a very dangerous game because it also comes down to wanting to fit in. You know, sometimes you feel like you've had certain friends, right? And because you guys get to look into each other's lives, the more you continue to shine, your friend might feel a specific way about you, right? Like, ish, you think you're all that now, or ish, can't really chill with this guy anymore, right? Because there's that window into your life, and your success is now casting a shadow on whatever it is they're trying to do and achieve. Not understanding that people's timelines are different, right? And that's why I've always been excited. When my friends win, I'm excited because I'm like, oh man, God must be around the corner, right? Because it means it's that energy is circulating in the squad. As long as I'm handling what I gotta handle on my part with what I'm trying to do, my vision, my goals, I know that energy is circulating and my stuff is gonna pop off eventually. But when you don't have much going on, or you're not focused on what it is that you gotta do for yourself, and you have that window into someone else's life, that's when their shine can cast a shadow. And that's where people then struggle fitting in, right? Because now when you get around each other, the energy is different. Why? Because I've had a window into your life. I don't know whether to play into my shine or bring it down, but bringing it down also messes with your energy, right? The person that might feel like you're casting a shadow on them, they might want to come to your level, but they feel like I don't have enough, I'm not doing enough to play at this level, so they stay down here, and then eventually there's just a disconnect, right? So the more you shine, the more shadows you cast. And you guys have to be very, very careful with social media these days. Very careful with social media, right? It is one of the causes for the large number of unhappiness that society is facing currently, because we all have windows. You know, back in school, you'd go to school and you'd go on holidays, right? And during those holidays, you didn't know what your classmate was doing, where they went, what they ate, which experience they went to. When you come back, they'd be like, where did you go to these past holidays? I was in Durban. You guys don't know if I was in Durban, or Mhlanga, or Amazindoti. You just know Durban, right? If I say, you know, I was in Limpopo, you don't know if I'm in Mujajis Kloof, you don't know if I'm in Polokwane, you don't know if I'm in the Kruger, you don't know, right? But because of social media now, every little moment of life, people have a window into that life. So the more you shine, the more shadows you cast. What are some of the other ideas, man? Oh yeah. It's either you're leading or you're playing catch up, right? So I've struggled with this for quite a long time, leading or playing catch up, right? Because most of my formative years I was playing catch up, right? I was always trying to keep up with my friends, I was always trying to keep up with the kids in school, I was always trying to keep up with my peers and whatnot, right? And sometimes I would do things that I didn't really want to do. That's why, you know, sometimes we experience post-group depression. It means you did something internally, you know, you weren't really chuffed about doing it, or you weren't that excited about doing it. So I used to suffer from post-group depression because my friends were going out, they were going hard, I'd go out and go hard, but then the next day I would feel this deep sadness, right? So I was always playing catch up, you know. Because we were always out, I never had time for training. Because we were always, you know, within vibes and whatnot, which were cool, but I'd later realized that I've always been on a mission, right? Internally, I've always been on a mission. And, you know, because I started hustling when I was 15, I even got a tattoo of the first logo I designed, so I've always been on a mission, right? trying to get it right, trying to figure it out, trying to, build out this vision. And when it came to like excessive partying and stuff, it wasn't really my thing, right? Trying to shine wasn't really my thing. But I was always playing catch up. When I started leading was when I became a lot more self-reflective, more disciplined, more accountable. My boundaries started coming up. My restraint went up. I would say no to this, no to that. No, I don't want to go there. No, I don't want to drink. No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that, right? And when I go home, I feel good about myself because I was leading myself to that vision that I've always had. So in life, you're either the person playing catch up, always chasing after other people. What did that person post? What did that person do? What did they get? Or you're leading. You're sitting down, you're formulating a plan. Or maybe you're working a job, you're trying to be the best at what you do. You're just giving everything 100%, your energy, right? So that you can develop, move, push, and start leading your life in the direction that you want to. Because if you're not leading your life in the direction that you want to, you'll end up following someone else's plan. And the time that it gets really, really interesting, right? Where you start to feel it. I'd say you don't really feel it in your early teens, early 20s. You only really start to feel it when you start hitting your late 20s, going into 30s, right? Where you're like, have I been following someone else's dream or am I working on building my dream? And people's energy around you changes. When you become a leader, people around you treat you different because you carry yourself different. There's certain things that you allow that you don't allow, right? There's certain energy that you have that you maintain. There's a certain aura about yourself that you carry, right? So when you lead, expect people to treat you differently because you're not the same person, you're not that follower anymore. And it's funny, one of the books that I read said, in order to become a great leader, you must first become a follower, but not a mindless follower, a follower that is studying and mastering the skills of a leader. So you might be in your following stage right now. If you're in a business, you're following your mentor. But don't be a mindless follower. Be a person that's studying the leader to then become a leader because you want to be an effective leader, right? Because you could sporadically say I'm a leader with no context, no background, no skills, and end up leading yourself into the ground or into a space that's very dark. Or if you follow, study, then come to your own conclusion to be like, okay, I've studied, I've followed, I've learned, I've mastered. This is how I'm going to lead. This is the direction I'm going to take based on the context that I've gathered. So, yeah, and also with regards to the topic of like gathering context, right? I always find it so interesting when I go through stuff. I might not understand it in the moment, but once enough time passes, I have enough context. When I look back, then I understand it, right? So especially when I'm speaking to someone or guiding someone, that's why when people ask me to be their mentors, I'm usually reluctant, right? Because I'll say something and they'll say, I hear you. I'll say something again and they say, I hear you, but I know for sure they don't understand me. And then when they go through whatever it is they go through, now they've gathered context of what I said. And then they come back and be like, now I understand you, right? But a person that says, I want a mentorship relationship, this is what I've done, this is what I'm doing, what's your take on X, Y, Z, right? I had people that were building their bodies, right? They were like, yo Mason, how did you do this? I said, okay, you need to do this workout for this aspect of the shoulder, you need to do this for this, your protein needs to be at this level, you need to do this. Then they go do it, right? And then they get the results that they were looking for, not the ones that I'm looking for, that they are looking for. But now you get a person that says, Mason, I want the same body as you, but I want to go to the gym. I just want to take the products. I'm like, dude, how you want my result when I'm giving you the formula and the steps? You want to tell me how you want to do it. So that's why the mentorship thing, I'm very touch and go with it. I like to rather lead by example, do as I do. and then you might get to the result that you're looking for if it's in alignment. So yeah, context is a big thing. A lot of people live life without context, right? I know what it's like not to have money. I know what it's like to have money. Context. I know how you feel when you don't have money. I know how you feel when you have money. Context. I know what it was like being skinny. I know what it's like being jacked. Context, right? I know the respect that I command was zero when I was skinny. I know the respect I command when I walk into a room as a jack guy is on like 1,000. Being jacked is everything, right? So it's the context, and the contrast brings the context, right? You become good at relationships by sucking at some relationships and learning, taking the criticism, right? You become great at something by failing your way to success. You fail, you rework, you understand, okay, I failed because of this. And all the failure does is add to your understanding, which adds to context, which adds to, your execution. So, yeah. I think that's it for today's episode in terms of sharing the different ideas, right? I hope you guys can go through this and get, I'd say, a couple of ideas in terms of what you might be working through, some of the lessons I learned in 2023, some of the perspectives I picked up and now implementing going into 2024. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Mason_RNG. And yeah, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it. Yo, that's a lot of talking. I think the last time I did it with you was 30 minutes, and that's still